Buried is a contentious zombies map in the community. A lot like it, a lot dislike it, but overall there are generally no strong opinions one way or another. For most people, this is a map that generally falls right down the middle in terms of ranking. I'm here to say why I think Buried deserves to be considered a top 5 zombies map. What's up guys, Jake here bringing you another zombies discussion video. In the background, I'm playing a PC mod called the Buried Challenge. I chose to get gameplay of this over the actual map mostly because of convenience, but also because the guy who created this map was working on a full-scale Buried remake before it was erased, and I wanted to show him some love. It also highlights that while most people do consider this a pretty average map, it does have fans, and a little bit of a cult following within the community. The challenge itself is pretty easy. I mean, you see me make it to round 30 without needing to train, and I beat it on my first try, but it was definitely fun and worth a shot at least once. Now with every discussion video, I like to highlight my biases from the get-go and leave it to the audience to evaluate my arguments with those in mind. Buried is the first zombies map I ever really started doing high round attempts on, it being the first map I broke both 50 and 60, so it does have some sentimental value to me in that regard. It was also during the peak of my zombies playing career and is probably the last map that most if not all of my friends had. Regardless of its flaws and its strengths, this map would probably hold a special place for me regardless. But with that being said, let's get into the actual analysis. Critics of Buried often offer up two major points. The first is its difficulty, or rather lack thereof. This is an easy map. The Paralyzer is an infinite ammo wonder weapon. The boss zombies are nothing to worry about. It's really easy to get 7 very helpful perks, and the map is simple to traverse. The argument is that this generally makes for boring gameplay, and there's often not much to accomplish outside of getting to a high round. The other critique that people bring up a lot is the setup. This map takes a long time to get set up on. And while the setup is not particularly hard like in Origins or Mob of the Dead, it is somewhat tedious like Zetsubo. Leroy, and I know his name's Arthur, but I'm calling him Leroy, is your main mechanism for opening things up, and you do so through a number of mini fetch quests. He can be a pain to wait for, you also have to avoid shooting him, or you'll have to do another mini fetch quest to get him again. The last main criticism I'm going to address is maybe more of a personal one, but it's that the Easter egg can't be completed solo, and on top of that, it requires 4 players. Not being able to complete it solo is a pet peeve of mine, but requiring 4 players is something that really bothers me, and in my opinion, is something that should never exist on a map. It makes it way harder for those who enjoy Easter eggs over high rounds to play the way that they want to play. So with all of these negatives, you might ask yourself why in the world I put this map in my top 5. Well, let's address each of these points one by one. Firstly, it's important to understand what people mean when they say that Buried is too easy. Typically, they mean that the game becomes too boring at a certain point. Outside of the setup, the map itself is simple, and there comes a point when all you have to do is kill zombies and survive. While this is true of every map, Buried tends to reach this point pretty quickly compared to its peers, and unlike other maps, Buried does not feature any boss round or alternative enemy types. There is no Margwa chasing you, or Templar zombies to disable your perk machines. However, I would argue that this is not really a bad thing. Mob types like the Templar zombies or the Ascension monkeys, or even the Hellhounds may add variety, but little in the way of actual substance. At the end of the day, they are manufactured in artificial conflicts. The Templar zombies or monkeys are really nothing but an annoyance at best, and the Hellhounds are basically a free round. Now something like the Margwa or Brutus would also not work in this map's favor as it takes away from one of its unique aspects, camping. Bosses force you to move and take up new positions, which limits Buried's strengths. Buried is the ultimate campers map, which is a strategy that is seldom seen nowadays in zombies, and hasn't really been popular since Darius. Since there is no boss zombie, Buried allows players to camp at Jug, in the courthouse, in the saloon, or above the general store. This map also has viable training spots and allows for full map circles. Buried truly allows the player to play the game however they want, with buildables to support all different playstyles. This gets at the core of what the map is about and what makes it great, and that is customization and player freedom, but more on that later. To circle back to the point that the map is too easy, making it harder would come at the cost of both player freedom in terms of playstyle and overall satisfaction. Unique mob enemies and even some boss enemies like George Romero are far more frustrating and annoying than creating a meaningful increase in the difficulty level. All this map is missing is hollow variety simply for variety's sake. Let's get to the unique enemies this map does have, the witches. The witches are unique in that they are not tied to a specific number of rounds, and the player chooses to engage them on their own terms. They are also unique because they do not damage the player's health, but their wallets, stealing 2,000 points with each hit. As annoying as that sounds, the map gives you the freedom to fight them on your own terms, only needing to engage them when getting Pack-a-Punch or Double Tap, and for defeating them, you get a free perk in return, 2 if you have time bombs. The player has complete control, which brings me to my next point. The people who complain that the map is too easy are generally really good at the game. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with being a good zombies player. It's something I imagine that most people watching this video are, or at least strive to be. But it's easy to forget the casual player in this equation. In my last zombies discussion video, I spoke about the importance of the casual player to the game, so I won't touch more on that. But yeah, when you hand this much control of a customizable map to a good player, the map is gonna be easy. You can put good weapons wherever you want, the box permanently wherever you want, and the best buildable wherever you want. Buried being easy also raises a more fundamental question. Zombies is a wave-based survival game. Eventually, the player will always lose no matter how good they are or how hard the map is. So what does it mean for something to be overpowered or for a map to be too easy? I stressed the point that when people say buried is too easy, what they really mean is that it's too boring. But this means that those same people are fundamentally asserting that going for high rounds is boring, which at the end of the day is what the game is all about. Again, in my last discussion video, I spoke about Easter eggs versus high rounds as the goal of a zombies map, so I won't go too much more into that. But I do believe this map's Easter egg being able to be completed solo would quiet some of the people who think that this map is quote unquote too easy. My response to this point overall is a simple one. This map is not too easy. Getting to high rounds still takes commitment, effort, and skill, even with the advantages the map provides. If you think the map is too boring, I would ask you 2 questions. 1, what would you do to make the map more interesting? See my points about hollow enemy variety. And 2, do you prefer going for Easter eggs or high rounds? If the answer is the former, this map is probably just okay for you. The Easter egg not being able to be completed solo is important here, because the map does not really offer 2 ways to play for both Easter egg players and high round players, and this would be my overall biggest criticism of Buried. Outside of this problem, however, which I believe is not fundamentally a small problem, and ultimately why this map is only number 5 on my list, player freedom and customizability are the name of the game. This leads into the point that the setup is too tedious. Because the map is so customizable, you're actually going to have to spend the time customizing. I recognize that this is not the most fun thing to do, but you are rewarded with plenty of points during the setup, and if you do it efficiently, it's really not that bad. That's an argument I generally do not like to fall back on, because you can say that about almost every annoying mechanic in zombies that's ever existed. But I will point out that in this setup, you're not annoyingly hampered by rounds like you are on other maps, just points, and the addition of the bank really makes this go a lot faster. Personally, I've always been a fan of the good old power switch as opposed to some of the alternative power mechanics, which definitely makes things go a lot faster. I can touch on the other smaller points that make this map great, like the aesthetic, sound effects, and colors. They also introduced new perma-perks like Flopper, Tombstone, Coupon Queen, Insta-Kill, etc., as well as the real new perk in Vulture Raid. We also got the Paralyzer, Time Bombs, Remington New Model Army, my favorite gun of all time, brought back the LSAT, and gave us 2 new buildables. And oh yeah, let's not forget the Ray Gun Mark II, which Barry doesn't get a lot of credit for. This map did more than people realize in the way of lasting innovations, and I truthfully liked all of them. The Easter egg, despite my complaints, is really fun and gives you a good reward at the end. The Victus Easter egg quote-unquote cutscene you can get is also really awesome and a worthwhile goal for all players to try and get at least once. Overall, Buried is not a perfect map. It does not offer a happy medium for Easter egg players and high round players, but it is a great map if you are specifically going for one over the other. This map gets passed over by too many people, I think in part because it came in between Mob of the Dead and Origins, but never has a map put more power in the hands of the player to control their experience. You can play Buried almost any way you want. I give maps lots of points for creativity, even if the execution is lacking a little, but with Buried, I don't believe the execution was lacking at all. Would I change a thing or two? Yeah, but I would give the same answer for almost every map. Buried is my number 5 map because it embodies the notion of killing zombies however you like to do it, which at the end of the day is really what this game is all about. Thanks for listening, guys. Make sure to leave your thoughts below in the comments, subscribe if you want more videos like this one, leave a like if you think I deserved it, and until next time, go crush some challenges.